The world into which Jesus was born was neither quiet nor simple. It was a restless planet, woven together by empires, trade routes, and ancient beliefs that seemed to compete for the soul of humanity. While in a small village called Nazareth a humble life was beginning, the world was turning with an intensity few could truly understand. In Judea, the shadow of Rome stretched like an iron hand. Legions guarded the roads, taxes crushed the poor, and a client king ruled with paranoia and fear. Jerusalem was a city both sacred and dangerous. Its walls guarded ancient prophecies, and in the temple burned the hope of a Messiah promised for centuries. No one imagined that this Messiah would not be born in a palace, but on the margins of visible history. Beyond Judea, the world was connected by routes that functioned like veins in a giant body. One of them, the Via Maris, crossed regions and cultures, linking Africa, Asia, and Europe. Merchants, soldiers, ideas, and rumors traveled along it. In that corridor of empires, the message about to be born would find an unexpected path to spread. Meanwhile, in the East, wise men studied the heavens. They were not kings, but scholars of the stars, heirs of ancient Persian traditions. They had learned to read the language of the skies, and suddenly an impossible sign disrupted their calculations. It was not merely an astronomical event, it was a message. Something or someone had entered the world. They left their lands, crossed deserts, and followed the light, unaware that they were walking toward the center of human history. Elsewhere across the world, ancient religions offered answers to suffering and the mystery of existence. In Persia, good and evil struggled as eternal forces. In India, detachment promised freedom from pain. In China, harmony was the highest ideal. Every civilization sought truth, as if all humanity were being prepared to hear a different voice. And that voice began in silence. In Nazareth, a forgotten town, a woman kept impossible words in her heart. She spoke of the Spirit of God not as a distant force, but as a living presence actively shaping history. Not through armies, but through promises. Not through violence, but through purpose. Jesus grew up in this fractured world. He walked the same roads used by merchants and soldiers. He heard many languages, witnessed daily injustice, and felt the weight of Roman oppression. Yet he also knew simple faith, the hope of the poor, and the deep longing for redemption that had passed through generations. When he began to speak, his words did not sound like those of philosophers or priests of power. He spoke of a kingdom not enforced by the sword, of a God who was near, of a truth that belonged not to one nation, but to all. His stories were simple, yet they dismantled invisible empires within the human heart. 12 ordinary men followed him. They were not strategists or rulers. They were fishermen, tax collectors, men without influence. But they carried something the world had never seen before, a message sustained not by force, but by inner transformation. After his death, the world assumed it was over. Rome continued to rule. The temple still stood. Trade routes remained open. But something had changed forever. In hidden homes, on dusty roads, and in distant cities, the message began to move like fire beneath the surface. The disciples traveled along the same routes once used by empires. Now they carried words of forgiveness, hope, and eternal life. The message crossed seas, passed through cultural borders, and survived persecution. Without armies, without thrones, without weapons. Thus, in a world filled with gods, philosophies, and absolute powers, a story born on the margins began to transform the center. What started in Roman-ruled Judea became a global movement not because it conquered territory, but because it conquered hearts. The world into which Jesus was born was ready, though it did not know it. Empires would rise and fall, but that story would remain alive, reminding humanity that sometimes the greatest changes begin in the smallest places, and in the silence of a night illuminated by a single star.
Brothers, we must hold fast to the path. The journey is long, but our faith is strong. Indeed, let us find strength together. light within you is a gift. Nurture it, and it will guide your family through every darkness.